The former head of GCHQ warns that nation-state cyber attacks threaten everyone. For Tech Republic and ZDNet, I'm Dan Patterson with Danny Palmer. Danny, you were recently at a panel presentation with ex-GCHQ director Robert Hannigan. What did he say regarding nation-state cyber attacks?
Well, speaking at the conference here in London, the ex-GCHQ boss who left his post in 2017 talked about how nation-state attacks or cyber attacks have always been a thing since the internet was around. Really, there have been evidence of Russian cyber attacks since the 90s. But in the last couple of years, it seems as been seen in various reports we've all written, the attacks have really stepped up. He pointed to examples of things like WannaCry and Russian cyber attacks, which are looking to infect home routers, as key examples of how these campaigns aren't going for governments and industrial systems as solo targets anymore. They're going for anyone they can get.
Yeah, so this is an interesting tactical switch, or at least expansion. Are they stopping or slowing down attacks against infrastructure, or simply adding consumers to the attacks?
It's both, yeah. There's still all these attacks against infrastructure going on, and we saw a couple of years ago the attacks against the Ukrainian power grid. We've seen more recent attacks against infrastructure. It's just a new arm of these campaigns. With various nation states looking to do what they can. Something Hannigan brought up is how in case of Russia, there's 3 different cyber agencies which are almost all competing with each other to do what they do. So there's a weird element of competition there, and in order to see who can do the most disruption, damage, interference, whatever you want to call it, out there in the wider world.
Danny, just so that we're clear, and we never want to veer into partisan territory, but you enumerated, or you said that there are 3 different Russian agencies, and we know that oligarchs are involved with cyber attacks. We know that even educational institutions, as well as organized crime from Russia, are engaged with cyber attacks. But what are these 3 organizations that are a component of Russia, these intelligence organizations?
Well, there's a lot of this is quite speculative, because even though security companies do want to sort of attribute these attacks, it can be quite difficult. But yeah, one arm is said to be, directly involved with the Russian Secret Service, their sort of intelligence agency, which I suppose is to be expected because intelligence agencies in the West don't like to talk about it as much, but all intelligence agencies around the world will engage in cyber warfare. The second is, what we guess we know as Fancy Bear, or APT28, the sort of Kremlin-linked group, it's said, who have been causing disruption around the world. I mean, just towards the end of last year, fingers were pointed directly at this group for causing the election interference in the presidential election. Then there's a third group as well, which it takes in a lot of different things across the country. It can be anything from these academics institutions you mentioned to what President Vladimir Putin has, I guess you could say, slyly referred to as individual patriots. He said, doing the bidding of the country. People they saying that aren't officially inverted commas acting on the instructions of a government, but yeah, it's difficult to think that they're not in some cases. It's a really murky area, and it can be quite hard to figure out.
Well, Danny, you've written a fascinating story. You can find it on ZDNet by visiting ZDNet.com. It's called Nation State Cyber Attacks Threaten Everyone, warns ex-GCHQ boss. While you're on ZDNet, look for email lists about cybersecurity and the latest news, as well as downloads. We have PDFs and ebooks. Danny, you've written a ton about the growing threat of cyber attacks. What other stories should people be on the lookout for?
there's so much going on in the world at the moment. One thing I wrote about just this week, another thing at InfoSec, was about regaining trust in the internet. Because obviously we had so many things going on in the last 18 months, like the cyber attacks, like WannaCry, which obviously had a massive effect on people. That everyone saw that. But the recent Cambridge Analytica scandal, I suppose you could call it, has had a massive impact on how people are, or some people at least, are approaching the internet as well. So yeah, if you want to read that, that's on ZDNet as well.